Good morning. So this is Roy Luebke with GENEDGE on January the 13th, 2013. And joining me today is Doug Pascarella from Dynamic Aviation, who has been one of our clients for a while. So good morning, Doug. I appreciate your time very much. I was wondering if we could start out by just explaining what your role is with Dynamic and how long have you been with their company?
Sure, and good morning, Roy. Nice talking to you. Yeah, I'm Vice President of IT with Dynamic Aviation. I head up and all the IT operations here at Dynamic, whether it's the phone, software development, all of our infrastructure, networks. That's the role here, and I've been here for almost 5 years now.
Okay, cool. So what is it that Dynamic Aviation does? What does your business do?
Yeah, if you ignore all this, all the rumors about us being a CIA operation, what we really do is and they've been doing it for 60, 70 years. We buy, maintain, modify, and operate aircraft for our clients. And that's what we do. We're owner operators of these aircraft. We have the defense component. That's why you see the Army painted aircraft here. And we do surveillance work. It's all about protecting our soldiers from roadside bombs and other things. Pure surveillance on non-combative work. We have civil, public health and safety, which is firefighting, spraying for insects, rabies vaccines up in the mountains here. You name it, we do a bunch of stuff there. And then we have any aerial application. And an ADA, which is aerial surveillance with data acquisition. We'll map coastlines, we'll map snowfall on the ice caps, we'll count polar bears, whatever the client wants us to do. We'll modify an aircraft and we'll solve their problems with it.
Good deal. Thanks. Yeah. So when did you get started on your compliance journey with cybersecurity and the DFARS 7012? How did that get rolling for you guys?
Okay, so I was hired in sometime 2018. And that was, there were some prior efforts, but they were really at ground zero as far as the compliance effort. Now, there was a lot of very sharp folks here, network administrators and security personnel. They were doing a lot of the stuff, but as far as compliance, we were at zero. And that was one of the reasons I was hired. They said, you have to get us, NIST 800, 171 under the DFARS 712, 7012 compliant. And that's when we started. It was really there starting from ground zero.
Okay. How many people have you had involved at Dynamic in this effort? Has it been you solo? Or?
Go ahead. Well, as far as being directly involved, I have one full-time security analyst, our compliance person. And he's the one that's responsible for getting all this stuff organized and spearheading the project. But there's part-time involvement of the network administrator, part-time involvement of our systems administrators, part-time involvement of our software development team, because it touches all of those aspects. And then there's the typical management stuff involvement. So, over the year or so, it was easily one pushing 2 FTEs all the time. Minimum 1, we were 2, sometimes a little bit more when we were implementing. And then we run about 1.5 to 2 right now. FTEs.
So when did we do your initial assessment? Because we do it like an assessment, then we get the gaps, and then we do the remediation component. Do you remember how long ago it was that you did that assessment?
Yeah, I believe that was in 2019. It was pretty early. And so we started out, and under the current NIST 800 171, you need to have documented what you're doing, have documented your gaps, and then your plan for remediating those gaps. And that gets you compliant. Yeah. And that's what GENEDGE helped us do. We went through our initial documentation effort. We brought GENEDGE in. You did that gap analysis for us, gave us all, our POAM, all the things we needed to do to remediate. And then we started marching down that path. And that's what we used to get us to where we just had another third-party audit done recently, and we scored very, very well with that by following the plan that GENEDGE put together for us.
Cool, cool. So, in part of the as part of this, how much has your senior management team had to spend time on this? Any insights into that?
Yeah, they were very like, Doug, do you got this? Doug, do you got this? It was more because very, very little understanding. They would help, and when I started rolling things out, because there's change management component to this, that reinforcing, hey, it's not just the IT guy forcing this on us. It's something we have to do. and we had to do it to maintain our DoD business. You know, you pretty much aren't going to be able to do business with them unless you're compliant. So that's why it's so important. And so they're helping and being supportive. As far as day to day, very little, just I'm reporting to them, keeping them informed. Yes.
Yeah. Have any decisions or anything had to escalate up to the board level, or do you have to present any of this at the board level?
We keep the board informed. We have a board of advisors since we're privately held. So they're, and a lot of them are made up of some former military. So they're very, hey, you guys doing the same thing, you know. And oh yeah, our IT department has this covered. So we kept them fully informed of our progress towards this. As far as approval, that's really internal. And yeah, there's been some approval for some equipment purchases and some other things that we had to do over time or wanted to do over time for this.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is that a lot of people, when they first get into this, they think, oh, well, it's just the IT department's going to be doing something. And we want to make sure everybody understands that this will flow up to the board of directors at some point, at some level. So it includes everybody in the business.
And for a lot of reasons, because there's pieces and parts that's a huge impact, or can be a huge impact on how you operate as an organization, and how just the security measures we had to put in place for the email and everything else gets, you know, it's more restrictive, you know, not using certain software. So yeah, it impacts everybody. So that's a big component of it. You're correct.
Yeah. Now you said our initial assessment was back in 2019. So you guys have been working on this for several years now. A lot of folks think that they can just zip and get this done in a few weeks and everything will be, you know, compliant. And your journey does take some time, does it not?
Oh, it does. And it's a big part of the compliance effort is documenting everything, having your policies and procedures in place, and you want to match the NIST 800 171 so it's easy for the auditors. But a big documentation component, and then providing evidence that you're really doing those things, you know. So we were in a case where we were doing a lot of the right things. You know, the staff, you know, they had a security mindset. So the firewalls were set up properly, the access control was set up, but none of it was documented. And so, and you can see this is a big documentation effort, and that's what takes some time. That's the hard part. And once you do it, you have to keep it up to date because things are constantly changing.
Now the flip side of the time then is money. Have you had to try and do any estimating of the amount of cost that you have incurred as part of this?
We've done a little bit. You know, I've divulged the FTEs involved, so you can sort of see that. You know, typical IT labor rates aren't cheap, right?
Nope.
If you're in a small operation, you can buy a lot of this stuff as a service. Where we were big enough, we're doing a lot of it internal, so we're absorbing more costs. Now, I took a look, and it's a little difficult because I did a bunch of upgrades to support just the normal operations because of our size. And of course, like we bought new firewalls. Did we necessarily have to? No, but the firewall we had wasn't up to the capability that we needed for our connections and stuff like that. So a little more difficult, but we set aside a good portion, you know, several $100,000 for equipment and other things that we may have to upgrade to put this in place.
And how many employees does Dynamic have?
We have right now we're running about 500 employees, and we have one main location here in Bridgewater, and then we have about 4 remote offices that are set up to support programs around the world.
So as you look back on this, the work that you've done, what have been some of the largest challenges that you've faced in this effort?
Just underestimating, or the level of documentation and the detail of documentation that was required to become. So the people we have working on this, that, well, you might have a real strong, you know, systems administrator, but is he also a real strong, you know, technical documentation writer? You know, so it really having that security analyst role that we filled, I needed to find someone that can, you know, be able to understand and then write, create, and pull the technical information and get the documentation in place. You know, it didn't matter. He wasn't the one implementing the changes on the firewall. That was the technical staff. He was writing up the policies and procedures that we needed to do. So underestimating that a little bit. And that was part of the length of time it took, you know, just you had the one guy writing these policies. being done, and then getting the evidence. So it was the documentation. Little other challenges, change management, can't underestimate it. More training, I wish we would have done as part of the lessons learned. More involvement with the management team to help roll this out, because you hit 700 people with multi-factor authentication. If you don't have that properly, vetted, trained, and the response when they're having problems. So some of those initiatives were, they were difficult to get out.
Yeah. What kind of training are you talking about? Are you talking about security training? Or are you talking about training using the system differently? Give us some examples.
Yeah, it was really both. So part of the compliance is that you have your annual training and all these things in place. So we had, Dynamic Aviation has a training department. I worked with them closely. Hey, here's the training, here's the material, and I'll put together the online course for us so we can have our annual training, our annual phishing training, the annual general security training. So they help deliver that. So there's some more costs. Like when I say my FT, I'm using my training department to deliver some of this. You can also get some of those training tools from, like, we have a software vendor that does our phishing tests and our phishing campaigns, anti-phishing campaigns. They have the training available with part of the subscription, so you can leverage those things as well. So yeah, the training piece is important. Then it was using the systems. When we roll out multi-factor authentication, well, you have 500 some people, a lot of them mechanics and guys that aren't on a computer every day in their lives. So trying to teach them how to run these different systems and use them. So we could have done a little bit better job there with when we rolled out.
Do you get any resistance from your staff on any of this stuff? Or
oh yes, yeah. Lots of resistance. Rolling out Intune. If you want email on your phone, we used Intune for the mobile device management. Well, we're spying on them. We're doing them. It's all about protecting our data. So here comes Big Brother. Trying to take over our phones or watching the websites. One, we don't have the capability, and we don't really do that. It's just about protecting our data. And so there was a learning that and there's still some remnants. People refuse to put this stuff on their phone, but most of them have realized that it's what we said, protecting our data.
Do you have people working from home, like administrative folks or anything, and having to deal with any connections to the home? Did that cause any challenges?
Yeah, we do have, especially during COVID. That's where when you talk about time, we also had that COVID interruption, and we spent a lot of time going from everybody drove to work every day to half the staff being at home. So there are some challenges there, but we had to make sure we had all the right equipment in place, all the right software on the PCs, get our VPN and our remote desktop, all the things that we needed to support the remote workforce. And now that remains in place today. Most people have come back, but a large part of my staff is working remotely now. That's one of the benefits we give them now. We were able to, because we could get this security stuff set up, and we're leveraging Microsoft's government cloud, we're able to, work securely from remote locations.
So it sounds like a fair amount of planning is involved in this for you. It's not just something that you just jump in there and tackle, and it's just done. It sounds like an extended planning exercise as well.
Yeah, it's constant planning. Technologies change, things come out. When you operate in the government cloud, that was severely lagging behind the commercial cloud. When it first started, it's getting a lot better as they roll out additional features, but things you might take for granted in the Microsoft world doesn't necessarily work in the government cloud. Just simple things like getting your dial-in phone number on Teams was a huge effort. We had to hire consultants to figure out how to do that. And in the government or in the commercial cloud, it's just there. In the government cloud, it took a big effort to make that work.
One of the things that we hear a lot from clients is they feel like this is just a paper exercise for DoD. It's just something you got to do, and there's no benefit. How has this increased your security posture for the business? How is it improved your the ownership and the control of your data?
Well, I think it's actually done a lot. So the focus with it is really protecting your data. So we had the technical guys that put up the firewalls. They built the moat around the organization. They had all those things in place, but there wasn't as big a focus on protecting the data. And this really turned the focus towards that now with all the data encryptions and all the other things that we're doing, and the mobile device management, and blocking certain software, stopping downloads on private devices. It's all the things we've done that really target protecting the data. So now you don't just turn this on. It's a lot of forethought. You're going to create these policies and procedures. Now everybody has to know them because they have to live by them, because if they want to circumvent, they're going to figure out a way to circumvent. So really getting them on board with understanding it, but understanding why we're doing it to help get their buy-in to say, I know I can beat this if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to follow the rules. And our job in the IT department, let's deliver the tools and everything they need necessary to do their jobs and do it as efficiently as possible, even though we got to provide the secure environment. So it's a real balance, and it's not an easy effort. No.
Yeah. Now I know you have a pretty large footprint out there, physical footprint at your field and everything. Was there a lot of physical security involved in this for you, as well as the electronic internet security?
Oh, absolutely. So, physical, again, it's one of the components of DFARS. You're going to have physical security. So, we have, we're in an operating airport. We have hangars, and in our hangars, we have switch cabinets. They're locked, and they have their HVAC units. We have our data centers here on base. We have our offsite stuff as well. And providing the physical security is just as important, using the card swipes for access control physically. Because we are a cleared facility, we also have a full-time security force. So we actually have guards and policemen that are on the property at all times, and that helps as well. So we run a pretty secure, not only, our electronic security, but also our physical security.
Yeah. A lot of our clients forget about that physical piece. And so I always remind them it's not just the electronic, data transfer piece. There's the physical component as well. Even as much as, the documents that are out on your desk in the office, and the storage of those documents that's controlled on classified information. You can't just leave that laying around, and people forget about that.
No, we, here, the CUI data, if say we have a foreign national visiting, we're given a tour, and if you left that stuff on you're violating, so the clear desk, the clean desk policy, and lock cabinets for any paper that we might have. So it does go beyond just the electronic in your computer. It tends to be, that's what everybody's thinking about, but you make a printout, or it could be a piece of equipment, it could be a piece of government equipment, because we deal a lot in the physical world when we put these airplanes together, so we have components that are controlled as well that we have to maintain security with.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's been evolving over the last few years is cyber insurance. And I'm curious what your view is. What's your company's view on use of cyber insurance?
I think it's a necessity. If you get targeted or if something happens, I kind of joke, one click away from retirement, a phishing email makes its way in, and it happens. You get the ransomware, or you get something that brings down your operation. How are you gonna everything? Everything from the HVAC systems, everything is run or has some computer or IT component to it now. So without this cyber insurance, it could be the difference of surviving or going out of business. So we carry it. Now, one thing I've learned, talk about lessons learned here, I'm following the government in this slow rollout of CMMC 2.0, and I was working at their pace. Well, let me tell you, the cyber insurance folks are way ahead of them. And
really?
they've been more forceful on making sure we have things implemented, improving we have things implemented than the government has. So I think it's a critical component, but it's also an area that I've started working with our agent more closely. Hey, what's coming up when you're seeing renewals on other companies? What are they looking for? What kind of things? So I make sure, I got my DoD compliance, but I also got to keep our insurance rates down as well. And what are they looking for? So it might add to our efforts on the things we do to meet. Most of it crosses over, but I got to make sure I hit both because of the necessity. Yeah.
So then you're working with your other administrative people. I would imagine this is somehow involves some legal guidance as well, does it not?
Oh yeah, we have a full-time contracts person that I use a lot, and then we have our our lawyer, our legal counsel that we use that we'll engage whenever we need them on things of that nature. So yeah, writing and getting the cyber insurance in place, and then getting the other components of our insurances in place for things that could happen because of the cybersecurity, or whether you get a data breach and all those things that could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you've mentioned CMMC, and we've all been keeping our eye on CMMC here now for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Is there, do you have a view on what people should be considering as the CMMC gets ready to happen in 2023? Any thoughts about what you see with that, or how you're anticipating dealing with it?
Sure. Now, the good thing about CMMC too, the government's been dropping the ball on this, it seems, and delaying it, kicking the can down the road. And I watched a Senate hearing with Joe Manchin, and it was very interesting. Joe really had his knowledge together, and he was really beating up on them. And so a couple of observations, I've made that the CMMC 2.0, they've nailed the level. They're calling it, the advanced level, which is level 2. So they got 3 levels. So the advanced level, which we're targeting, is NIST 800-171, which we should have all been doing anyway. So there's really nothing new as far as what you need to do to meet this CMMC level 2. But everybody's got to realize it's going from self-reporting, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm not doing, and here's when I'll get it done, to having you need to prove at an audit level that you're doing all of it to maintain that level, to get that certification. And for us to maintain the business, we need that certification. So it's, from a self-reporting to an audit certification model. So get started. And what the roadmap's going to be. It's NIST 800-171. So get those things in place, or 53, but get those things in place and make sure you have them done, and use, whether it's GENEDGE or some other company, to do your audits to make sure all along, to make sure that you're meeting these things and you're doing it right. And I like using a couple different auditors, because you get different perspectives, because every auditor is different. You're going to look for different things. And so that's really important. But keep an eye on the CMMC with the government, but also watch the cybersecurity folks, because they could sneak up on you, and then you're in a tailspin trying to get your cyber insurance renewed, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So my final question to you, Doug, is this. If you could do it all over again, if you were starting all over, are there any things that you would do differently?
Yeah, that's the armchair quarterbacking, or the hindsight.
Yeah.
But, if I knew what I knew now, the documentation effort, just engaging senior management or your board of directors, hey, we need this capability. And a lot of it would be temporary while you get it in place, but putting some resources to make that effort go a little bit faster, getting the right security technical writing staff, or even contractor support in place to get that stuff done. Because, taking a couple of years to do those things, well, we had the time. If you're starting now, you're not going to have a lot of time before they start writing this stuff into contracts, and you're going to have to do it. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, Doug, I appreciate your time very much. We appreciate Dynamic Aviation as a client, and having a lot of influence on the economy of your part of the state over there. So I'm going to go to stop the recording now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.